It's been 4 years since George Floyd was killed at the hands of a Minneapolis police officer. In many ways, his murder and the subsequent protests changed North America. Floyd was 46 years old when police accused him of trying to use a counterfeit bill at a convenience store. Even though Floyd was handcuffed and lying face down on the street, Officer Derek Chauvin pressed his knee into Floyd's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. Despite Floyd repeatedly saying he couldn't breathe, he died at the scene. The incident sparked significant changes, including policy reforms in police departments, increased discussions on racial inequality, and the toppling of controversial statues and symbols associated with racial oppression. The phrase, "I can't breathe," became a rallying cry for the Black Lives Matter movement. Officer Chauvin was later convicted and sentenced to more than 22 years in prison. Dahabo Ahmed-Omer is the Chief Executive Officer of the BlackNorth Initiative. That's a nonprofit organization that was created amid the Black Lives Matter protests and is aimed at removing anti-Black systemic barriers affecting the lives of Black Canadians. And she joins us this morning in Toronto. Thank you for talking to us this morning because it is a conversation that continues to be quite an important one. May 25th, 2020, it's already been 4 years now. I want to start by asking you, what does this day mean for you?
Oh my God, I think, it means a great amount of deal. I think it was a moment of awakening, not just for me, but for very many millions around the world that look like me. I think it was a moment where we all saw ourselves in George Floyd, where a part of us died that day when we witnessed his murder. And so every year on this day, it's a moment to not just remember, but to not forget as well. And I say that with a lot of certainty because he represents an incredible amount of efforts and contributions that have gone into the freedoms and the liberation of Black people. And so we remember him, but we ensure that we never forget him.
BlackNorth Initiative, the goal is to encourage employers to commit to targets to increase the number of Black employees, remove barriers for Black employees who are trying to advance. How much progress do you think has been made over the last 4 years?
I think there's been a great amount of progress, just the idea of having these conversations that we're able to say and use the language of systemic anti-Black racism, that we're able to go into conversations without any shame about talking about the eradication of some of these barriers and the impacts it has on the lives of Black people. And not just that, there's been incredible amount of shift when it comes to strategies, when it comes to building an equitable ecosystem and environments for people that look like me. And I think a big part of the conversation now has been, how do we ensure that we continue doing that work, that we do not get derailed, that we do not allow to forget some of the challenges that we've obviously have faced over generations now. And so it's not easy, but I can tell you that there's been an incredible amount of shift, whether it comes into representation, leadership roles, or building the pipeline, or seeing more Black students in universities. There's a lot of changes that we're starting to feel finally 4 years later. And I think we need to ensure that we continue doing that. And so it's an incredible amount of work, but I'm very proud to be doing this work with very many others. And it continues to be the thing that I think will shift. It's dedicated and tireless energies of people. We can't relent. And I say that all the time. We can't forget and we can't relent. So lots of changes and lots more to come, right? We're not nearly where we need to be. We are generations behind. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and people need to be aware of that and continue being passionate about it.
What needs to be done then to keep that momentum going, that momentum that you're just describing here, to keep the conversation going, to make sure that the conversation continue? And what challenges do you think corporate Canada still has when it comes to diversity and equity?
I think what needs to be done is, and it's a big part of what today looks like for us at BlackNorth. Today is not only the anniversary of the murder of George Floyd, but it's also Africa Day, and it's also our annual fundraising gala. And we come together on this day not only to remember how we came together as an organization. We were founded shortly after the murder of George Floyd, so it's an opportunity for us to remain steadfast in our cause and in our mission, but also allows us to celebrate our Blackness, to celebrate our roots, to look into the future. And so it's important that people center themselves in those realities, but also celebrate. We've never been an organization that shames anyone because we believe in the power of the collective and the unity, and no one should ever be left behind from this conversation. And we also believe that it's everyone's responsibility. It should have never been on the shoulders of Black people only. And now, finally, it isn't. And corporate Canada has been playing a really critical role in advancing policies and shifting the way that they function as an ecosystem. And, one of the big challenges for corporate Canada has always been recruitment. How do you bring Black talent into a workspace? How do you find Black talent? And once they're there, because there's no point in bringing Black bodies to your workspace if you are not ready to receive them, if you're not ready to empower them, if you're not ready to give them decision-making powers or resources or tools that they need to be successful in the spaces that they're in. And so the challenges continues to be in creating, a well-rounded support system to ensure that individuals who have been derailed and have been impeded for most of their lives now can have the systems and resources to level the playing field, but also allow them and propel them to be successful. And so recruitment and the way that we find people and bring human resources into our spaces continues to be that challenge. But I've seen a great amount of shift in the way that corporate Canada functions. There's a willingness, there is a sincerity, and I think with a combination of those two, we can create some real systemic change. And that's what we're looking for, things that will actually be embedded in the way that we function. And as opposed to just individuals being leads on this work, we need our systems to shift. Because once our systems shift, then it's going to be an organic way of functioning, right? And so a lot of it right now is just figuring out, how do we bring people in? How do we keep them? And how do we make sure they grow? I
think that's a great point. Meaningful versus performative. Dahabo Ahmed-Omer, thank you so much for your time and your insights today. Dahabo is the Chief Executive Officer of the BlackNorth Initiative.